Bike fitness coaching again with another video. We're going to discuss part 2 of the WAHOO kicker bike bottom bracket fix. So what do you do next after you've fixed the bike and you want to maintain bike integrity? So just to catch everybody up, we got a new bottom bracket from WAHOO. We did a video on the fix in detail, how to remove the bottom bracket itself from the fit bike and reinstall a new one. And to this video we're going to talk about the fix part 2, aka what to do next. And now just let you know it's running like new, but it's going to require some maintenance. And finally, don't forget the other things that can rust. We'll discuss this here at the end of the video. So some people have said, hey, we understand WAHOO sent you this bottom bracket, but you have a red one in there. So what I did is that the bottom bracket, basically one of the bearings, I think it was a non-drive side, actually froze up. So I found a old ceramic or hybrid ceramic bottom bracket that looked just like this from HSC Ceramics that I had laying around. I installed that one. I do still have this brand new WAHOO one that I can put in next. So it's all ready to go for next time the bottom bracket freezes up. The differences are the one WAHOO sent is your typical standard bottom bracket with steel races rings and steel balls. What I put in, steel races and rings with ceramic balls. So just trying to see how this is going to ride. Right now it runs as smooth as butter. So from before, from the other summary from the other video, and there is the link to the video. When I pulled the crank out, this is what it looked like. So this is the drive side, this is the non-drive side. So this is the right side and the left side. You can see where the drive side bearing runs on and the non-drive side bearing. So if you remember, I had to kind of pound it out a little bit. That's because look at the bearing was completely encased in rust, both internal and external sides of the bearing. You can see that it had to knock the rust out of the way to get the crank to run through this way. I had to take a plastic pick and pick all of this rust out and scrub it a few times with simple green to get all of the dirt and debris out. And then I took some very light sandpaper and sanded the rest of the rust off. And this is typical what even a road bike, for example, even a Shimano after a season would look like. Although the spline is a little bit different on the Shimano, but you can see where the bearing's running here and here. But a nice heavy coat of penetrating oil, and then followed by some grease, and then I reassembled it. So it should last a lot longer this second time around. So what I did to prevent any more corrosion and bottom bracket damage, so when you're riding indoor bikes, things don't dry off as fast. Like, for example, my cycling shoes are completely soaked on a good indoor session. Outdoors, same level of effort, they're still dry. You can kind of see on the right pedal where it's starting to corrode as well. So I've also taken that apart and re-greased everything on here. Again, for people that are going to be asking, I'm 6 foot tall, and yes, my cranks are set at 170s, which in my opinion is where a 6 foot tall person should be, at a 170, not 172.5, not 175, 170 max. So the sweat will pour down here. It runs off the forehead, drips off the chin, hits the top tube of the kicker bike, runs down, and then hits the downslope, what you would call the seat tube, and runs right down into this area, which is where the bottom bracket bearings are. So for this, the way the kicker bike is, there's an outside shield and an inside shield to keep the pulley wheel and the pulley belt encased so you don't get anything snagged or caught in it. So it's very easy to shove a rag down here, prevent any more rust from or any more sweat from getting into this area down here and causing further rust and damage. Also, there are two areas on the kicker bike in the back and the front that are like collectors. They're like reservoirs where the sweat can come down and actually start collecting here. So what I did here is put a liberally applied WD-40 in this area, let it kind of soak in, and then shove the rag here and shove the rag on this side to keep sweat from pooling in here, which again can potentially rust the foundation of the kicker bike. So that's going to help save that. So add a rag here, add a rag in here, but initially first fill it up with WD-40. Another view top down. Again, this is the drive side or the right side. This would be the non-drive side over here. Sweat pours down here, runs right down into the bottom bracket shell area and destroys the bearing. So here's another view of the top of the rag. This is completely shielded, so it's safe to shove a rag in here, unlike a bicycle, which is exposed. So rag goes in here, prevents the sweat from pouring down in this area. It's going to help keep the bottom bracket bearings running like new. Another view of the rag on the back side. Again, this is the front of the bike, this is the back of the bike. A rag on this side, just a little close-up view. On the non-drive side, so this is what I did to protect the bearings. I ran a couple small half strips of 2-inch wide. I think I cut them into 1-inch wide pieces and did a couple loops around the bottom bracket itself. So the bottom bracket cups are in here and preventing it. So if the sweat comes down, it's going to drip on this. You can see some drips already here. Going to drip on here and then run off the edge and then down onto the floor. So this potentially, and I try to bring it back just enough where the crank arm, as it goes around, it's going to be rubbing against the outside of this duct tape. This is the high quality 3M duct tape for those interested. And it just rubs around here, keeps it sealed as much as it can, as wide as possible this way to keep any sweat and moisture off of this bearing. So what else can rust? So person sent me a picture of their cleats, and they said not only are the cleats ruined, but the shoes are ruined too, because there's no way you're going to get these cleat bolts out of the shoes. So I highly recommend never to get your cleats, and this is including the road bikes, don't let your cleats get this bad. I recommend unscrewing each cleat bolt one at a time and re-grease. So if it's still in good condition, you would unscrew this bolt, making sure this is tight so the cleat doesn't move if you like that cleat position. Put some grease on here on the threads. Take maybe a Q-tip and run it down into the cleat plate hole. Reassemble this screw, then take this screw out. Do the same thing, and I recommend if you're riding indoors at least 2 times a year. Go through and re-grease the cleats, keeping them clean and lubed and preventing rust. Again, if you let them get this bad, you're never going to get them out of the shoes. And you can see these cleats are pretty worn. Well, the cleats are worn and the shoes are gone. So you could potentially drill these out, but probably with easy outs. But if the sweat is that bad and the rust is that bad into the holes, basically they fuse together. So you're never going to get that out of there. For example, here are my old pedals, Look Keo 2 Max. with about 2 years of indoor cycling. And Look did not want to do a warranty repair, so basically the issue with Look compared to Shimano, Look are primarily, they are lighter pedals, but they have to sacrifice things somewhere to make them lighter. So these axles are not sealed anywhere near where Shimano's are sealed. Shimano, Dura-Ace, Ultegra, those are bulletproof pedals. They're never going to really rust internally. They're sealed completely. I've never had any issues with sweat getting inside and rusting out the bearings. The bearings on the Look pedals are completely frozen. And furthermore, these are these plastic nuts into the carbon fiber. The threads are stripped, so there's no way to get these out. So these pedals are trash. They do have a rebuild kit, which assumes you have to get these axles out first to be able to rebuild them. So if you're using Look for indoor cycling, expect them to fail much faster than Shimano pedals. Again, you're going to have to take them off periodically and re-grease them. My experience, don't remove this too many times, otherwise you're going to strip the threads and then the pedals are trashed. Here's a same shot, same pedals I should say. You can see where there's some grease under here that I've greased before. You can take a look at the condition of the rust. Even though these have been maintained, they still rust. So again, other things I highly recommend you go through the whole bike and re-grease things periodically for indoor cycling, including your shoes, cleats, pedals, and anything else that's on the bike that comes into contact. Take the handlebar tape off periodically. Check that the handlebar aluminum isn't corroded and ready to fall apart. That was another previous video we did on handlebar integrity and what happens with sweat on handlebars. So with that, hope you enjoyed the quick video, and we'll come up with the next one in a couple weeks.